Welcome back to the freemilesmc, and we're today going to compare the Royal Enfield Guerrilla 450 with the Royal Enfield Interceptor 650. And even though these two bikes are really different, let me tell you why the Guerrilla 450 is in a way the new Interceptor 650. First of all, it maybe seems like a bit of a weird comparison with the Guerrilla having a 452cc liquid-cooled single-cylinder engine compared to the air-cooled two-cylinder 650cc engine. And also with these two bikes being set up at two very different ends of the roadster spectrum, with this bike being a full-on modern motorcycle and this bike being a really nice neo-retro bike with a lot of attention to detail and really a good look inspired from the bikes of gone days. And now let's get to the point what makes this video make sense. Because back in 2019, when I started to get interested in motorcycle riding, the Royal Enfield Interceptor 650 started at $5,500 and went all the way to 6,000 euros in my home country. And with that, it was a really good option for a first motorcycle that I was considering at the time, because it had basically everything you needed for a great A2 motorcycle and loads of character with its really beautiful design. I, at the end of the day, didn't go with that bike because I had to work for my own bike on minimum wage, but it was my dream at the time, and a few years later I managed to pick one up for $4,000 from the used market with 3,000 kilometers on the clock when the used market was taking a dip. However, the situation now is that the Royal Enfield Interceptor in stores here starts at around 7,000 euros and goes all the way up to 7,900. And when going into a Royal Enfield dealership, really often you see them being traded for more than 8 grand. Enter the new Guerrilla 450, which enters the market depending on your home country and also on the color at 5,247 and goes all the way up to 5,750 euros. With that, it's kind of the new budget option that you can actually consider without breaking the bank. With me as a young person feeling like I'm now priced out of potentially considering an Interceptor 650 as a first bike, how does the Guerrilla 450 square up in performance?
With them both being street bikes that you take out on a nice weekend or ride in the city from stoplight to stoplight, a good test to compare would be the quarter mile. And here we see the Guerrilla 450 wins the quarter mile by half a second.
The Guerrilla 450's one-cylinder liquid-cooled engine, which is the first of its kind, produces 40 horsepower and 40 Nm of torque compared to the 48 horsepower and 52 Nm of torque of the Royal Enfield Interceptor. With that, the Royal Enfield Interceptor is winning that comparison. However, the Guerrilla 450 is 32 kilos lighter with 185 kilos compared to the 217 kilos of the Royal Enfield Interceptor. And also, 85% of the torque is accessible before 3000 RPM, which is really clearly visible if they line up head to head.
But riding a motorcycle is not just about performance in a straight line.
So the Guerrilla 450 here makes the start, and I gotta say it feels relatively similar to how the Interceptor feels power-wise, but the handling is out of a different world. While the Interceptor is a properly old-school handling bike, this here feels modern. You really feel the monoshock. It doesn't wobble in the turns, like right in this turn the Interceptor does a weird wobble. And here, just all really fine, and it's plenty of fun. Like, this is some proper modern naked bike fun, but like with a usable amount of power. And the bike feels so nice. It feels really close to what you would feel on a Ducati Scrambler Icon. And it's a bike that is the closest in comparison, and it's a bike that I really love. And the small and nimble handling is great fun.
Let's get to the Royal Enfield Interceptor, and I at first didn't realize how light years difference there is between these two bikes in the handling. The Royal Enfield Interceptor compared to the Guerrilla 450 handles like an old school motorcycle, which is also what it's trying to be. However, the Royal Enfield Interceptor still handles a lot better than an authentically old bike or even like a bike from 30 years ago. It's a really weird in-between point. The old feeling of the Interceptor also really influences the comfort level. The Royal Enfield Interceptor is a lot less comfortable than the Royal Enfield Guerrilla. All in all, this is no surprise with the Interceptor having an old school kind of frame and 18-inch wheels at the front and back, and the Guerrilla having 17-inch wheels at the front and back and some proper tire sizes like on a modern like naked bike, and also an engine that's integrated into the frame.
Let's get to the really fun stuff, and that's how the bikes feel and how they are to live with on a day-to-day basis. I always think, yeah, the specs are nice, but they're actually kind of boring and don't say that much about a motorcycle itself. And first thing off the bat, I have to say the Interceptor 650 is per se not really a beginner bike. Let me elaborate. That's mainly because it's a bike that calls back to bikes from the past, and it's really tough to appreciate something like this if it's your first bike, and then you only kind of get it for curb appeal. Also, the nice parts that all look really nice result in a lot of maintenance. You need to maintain that chrome, and if you're a beginner rider, you're already overwhelmed with maintenance most likely, and this will not be a satisfying owning experience if you already realize like, oh, the chrome doesn't look good, it doesn't make me happy in that sense, and it can be really overwhelming. It's a nice bike to take to the ice cream shop, and I also did like a bunch of more stuff with it. Like I rode this bike in the summer, 20,000 kilometers, and I gotta be honest, I had trouble maintaining the bike from its chrome and everything, and I even do right now. Like the chrome is, I definitely need to polish it, I definitely need to put an effort into it, but it's tough to always find time for it. And a bike like this is a lot easier to clean, a lot easier to maintain, and for someone who's starting out, most likely the more satisfying owning experience. And that really brings me to another point with this bike being a modern machine. I think if you're starting out, you should get a bike that makes sense. Either a bike from the used market or something cheap that is new. And a modern bike can be a really, really nice option here, even though I love all the old Royal Enfields. But in a way, something like this is a cosplay. And with it being a cosplay, as an owner of a motorbike, especially if you get into motorbike riding, with this bike being beginner and young people targeted, you run into some issues because you're pretending to be something that you're not, kind of automatically, with the whole like James Dean-ish cosplay that you have here. And I'm not judging or anything, it gets in the way of actually experiencing motorcycle riding.
And that leads me to the conclusion that the Guerrilla 450 is the more satisfying bike for someone who's just starting out, who should focus first of all on riding a motorbike. For anyone else who looks for a more characterful experience as like an extension of their personality, the Interceptor really can be a nice option, and the time you'll have with the Interceptor is really good. This is basically what the average owning experience of it looks like.
If you start owning a motorbike for longer, you want to do stuff to it. Let's talk about customizability. And I gotta say it straight up, the Royal Enfield Interceptor 650 is absolutely winning that one. The amount of customizability in this bike is insane. You now see I kind of have it here as a scrambler looking thing with like a different front like mudguard, and also with like a headlight protector, and the amount of crazy conversion kits you can get for like around $1,000, especially from France, is insane. Like you can make the bike look like a full-on old Rally Dakar bike. You have high-waisted exhausts, you have like bigger bore kits, you with the frame being basically the engine inside the frame and the engine not being part of the frame, you can put a surfboard mount on this. I did that. I did a motorcycle surf trip with it, and there's no way doing that with this machine. And you're basically, on the whole, making it your own bike. You're losing out here with the Interceptor 650 basically having insane amount of options there. Like whatever direction you want to go in, like building it into a cafe racer, like with fairings and everything, flat tracker, scrambler, all the creativity you can have here in every direction you want to go in, you can go really far, and it's really nice. And the amount of support that there is for this bike is insane. With this one, you of course also have like a few things you can get, and with the bike being not that long on the market, that's also a big reason why there are not that many parts here, but I don't think there will be that many parts as there are for the Interceptor at the end of the day. So this is it. I'm not going to say which bike is better because it really depends on who you are as a person and as a motorcycle rider and what you want out of a motorcycle. And I hope that it helped that I was able to lay out all the information here, because like for someone who now maybe as a beginner really wants the Interceptor because it's gorgeous. It's a beautiful bike. Maybe like didn't recognize the few components that can get difficult here as a beginner, or maybe would be better suited on a bike like this. So definitely leave your opinion in the comments what you think of the Guerrilla 450 and also of the Interceptor and which bike you would choose. And see you next time.